All right, so let's go ahead and get started here, as I think most of the attendees are present. So as we today review the newest Messageers product segment, some quick introductions. My name is Nick Zeke Lopez, and I'm a product marketer here at MessageGears, and today I'm with Ricky Timbers.
Hey everyone, excited to demo this for everyone.
So Ricky is the product owner of the of segment. I am a marketer here at MessageGears, and while I'm fairly familiar with I would say the product marketing that we've put around the tool, I'm not as familiar with how it was built. So I'm going to take us through just a few slides here to showcase a little bit of why we built it and what it does. But then Ricky's going to take us through to see the actual software itself and get a better feel of it. A quick introduction for MessageGears. MessageGears is a customer marketing platform that exists to reduce the data friction that prevents marketers from being able to effectively communicate their brand. We started with Message in the top right. That's one of our products. It is more like a traditional ESP, but it connects directly to the customer data. So it is meant to send many messages for some of the world's largest brands at true scale, allowing personalization. We also have Engage at the bottom. That is a product that we created in order to stop the separation of data that gets in marketers' way, allow them to have quick and effective access to their data so that whether they're personalizing emails as they go out on OpenTime or supplying data for their website or other uses, it's there. And today we're going to cover Segment on the left. Now, this is an audience classification tool that also allows you to enhance the data going to your third parties and then export it to different third parties. So what do I mean by that? Well, it connects directly to your customer data. It allows you to create segmentations of audiences using attributes that you have in your data, grouping similar recipients together, and then enhance your data through the addition of labels that Ricky will show you, and export to any number of third parties, whether you're communicating them through mobile, through email, or any one of a number of different channels. Like I said, it connects to both social media channels, things like Google AdWords, LiveRamp. You can actually send messages through the MessageGears platform, and you can also send to Airship or any typical modern marketing platform. Ricky, can you take us through the use case we'll be seeing today?
Yeah, so today we're going to be using the furniture company City and Glory. And the goal for this is going to be to take our audience, segment it based on purchase and loyalty information, and then actually export those users to a different location based on their level of engagement.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Before we get into it, I just want to ask an audience question. This is open. Please feel free to put in the webinar chat. But if you currently have a segmentation platform or a segmentation tool, what are common struggles you have with it? What are things that you'd like to see addressed or changed? As Ricky goes through the demo, I can kind of take those questions and he can show you a little bit about how the MessageGears platform is different and some of the things we do. I'm going to stop showing my screen now and make Ricky the presenter so he can walk us through today's use case.
Sure. Let's do this, show my screen. All right, so everyone see my screen, looks good. All right, so let's get started here. So what you're looking at right here is what we're calling blueprints, right? And this is just basically a list page of your blueprints. And those blueprints are what you're going to use to create this visual representation of your data and actually create your segments, enhance your segments, and then use those in exports. So let's go ahead and create one here. We'll call this MessageGears webinar. Now, we did give you the ability to start from scratch if you know what data you want to use, or copy an existing audience query from an audience in the MessageGears platform. For today, we're just going to start with a blank query. And just like that, we are now on a page that looks almost identical to the audience page, because what this is doing is with our database connection, for today, I'm going to be using BigQuery, but MessageGears can also easily integrate with, Postgres, MySQL, Redshift, or even Snowflake. So either your standard or your new modern cloud infrastructure-based database. We're going to select from there, and again, MessageGears is selecting your data. We're not requiring you to upload this to another location or host it somewhere else. Wherever your data lives, we can select it. Looking through here, I'm actually exploring the tables and the columns that we're actually able to select from MessageGears. And if we do a quick preview here, this is just the output of that actual query. There's no schema prescribed. Whatever your columns names are, whatever format they're in, we can use it for this segmentation. And what you're looking at here, as I kind of scroll through this slowly, is any of the attributes you see here, we're able to use in the segmentation. So for today, we're actually going to start with whether or not you've made a purchase, which you can see is just going to be true or false. So with that, if I click create, and just like that, you're looking on your screen. This is just a separate tab on that same blueprint. And what you're looking at here is starting population. I'll go ahead and trigger account while I'm explaining this. This is going to be the root node of your segmentation. So you see our query returned 54,000. And from here, we're going to take that base, 50,000 population, and actually begin doing the segmentation itself. So to show how that looks, we'll go ahead and do a target. We'll name this purchase made, purchased, and then we're going to choose the column that we wanted to use. So as I showed earlier, this is first purchase made, and we're going to say equal to true. Save that, and then we can then do an additional count to see what that's actually doing. So here in just a second, you'll see we have the 54,000, and now of that data, about 27,000 have actually made a purchase in our platform. So from there, I can continue on in that segmentation, doing different processes. I can do more targets of, using that simple query builder. I can do things like a random split, merge things together, select a subset. But instead of walking you through that whole process, I actually pre-built one using this exact same use case. So go ahead and leave this page real quick and pop over here. And so here you can see this is, what we just did. We had, did you make a purchase, equals true. From there, we continue to segment. Now we have our purchasers, and we segment them by loyalty level. So this is that same kind of target process, but now I'm selecting by their loyalty level, whether it's silver, gold, or so on. And kind of continuing down this flow, we go down to a recent purchase. So in the column is, or in the table is actually calling this purchase date. So we're defining a recent purchase as, have you made one in 2020? That's recent enough for us. People don't purchase furniture too often. And then lastly, we use the random split to create a target and a holdout group. So this is going to be, an 85 and 15% split. This will be randomly generated and allows me to, do things like A/B testing and, test out my content and how it's actually performing. And another thing to kind of catch here is, let me trigger another count to get an updated run here, is again, we had our 50,000, which updated 54. You can follow how that number is changing as we go through the tree. So there's 27, 13, and we continue to refine to more granular segments.
Sure. Now, a quick question that we actually got in the chat, Ricky.
Sure.
So the question is, to use Segment, do you need to have a SQL or a BI background? Can you touch on, it looks like the two different tabs there, what the intended user is and what kind of background they need?
Sure, absolutely. So for the actual SQL tab, when you're setting up the data, that's going to require a data background. But all this is doing is setting up the ability or those attributes that you're going to be using. So again, if we go back to this preview, all this query is saying, is what do you want to have in your toolbox to segment on, right? And that does require some SQL knowledge to set that up. But once it's set up, it's really intuitive from this screen using the SQL query builder, simple query builder, to build segments. So let's actually jump into a different one here. So if you look at silver, we have loyalty level equals silver, and you're able to kind of think about it in more English terms of, loyalty level equals this, or, if it was spend, spend is greater than 1,000, and you don't have to worry about, you don't have to have a knowledge of, SQL syntax or anything of that nature.
Sure. And then just on that SQL syntax part, just got a question of the querying the backend system. As you go through this count, those numbers, are we storing any extra data here? How are you getting those numbers?
Sure. So no. So what it is this first number is coming from the query. We're running the query, we're getting a count of those results that are being returned. But these subsequent ones, the 27, 13, and so on, what this is doing is now that I've built this segmentation, I've effectively created my own rules engine. And all this is doing is MessageGears will extract the data, it'll run it through that rules engine that you've created in this visual builder and give you those counts in real time. We're not, writing to your database or anything like
Okay, excellent.
that. And
Um,
so, and additionally, one thing you might be asking yourself is, what are these gray boxes here? We're just calling those everything else nodes, and basically they're the catch-all scenario for your logic. So we zoom in here on this first step, right? We ask ourselves, have you made a purchase, right? Well, what happens if you haven't? And that's what the everything else is there for. You don't have to write those negative scenarios. We'll create that for you. And it'll give you an idea of, I had about 27,000 that made a purchase. I've had about half that haven't. Additionally, made a purchase. And then if you recall here, I was showing those actual loyalty levels. But again, we had, 13,000 of those that aren't enrolled in the loyalty program. And the way I use those is I just kind of group those all together into a merge node, which is you can follow those lines going here, just so I can group similar segments, and because I want to act on them in the same way. In these cases, these are going to be my low touch point, low engagement users that I might want to send a different piece of content.
okay. Just another quick question popped up. Is there a limit on the number of, I don't know what you call, I'll call them boxes, and then like how many times you could split something?
So two questions there. So the first, is there a limit to boxes? Absolutely not. It's however you want to do it. We did some things like, for instance, if you look at loyalty level, we group these up so that we can kind of reduce that cognitive load on the screen and not blow this tree out into absurdity size. And additionally, for splits, really the only limit here is that it has to be a whole number. If for some reason you wanted to do 101% splits, you could do that. But we, easily make it, we'll just do target 2 here. We still make it easy and intuitive to auto balance things for you, no matter what scale you're looking at, and you'll get a box for each of these splits. Conversely, I can remove that and switch right back to the 8515 I was using.
Okay. So I feel like I see here what you were talking about with the segmenting of the audience, because I see how the audience could flow down the tree. Can you show a little bit of what you're talking about when you say enhancing data?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things you can look at is you might notice on the starting population, we have these 2 labels. So what's a label? Let's find out. So if you look at the blueprint labels here, I actually added these already. You had segment ID and recent purchase. These are values or that MessageGears is going to add to your data as we extract it. We're not writing to your database. We don't have to use columns that already exist. These are attributes that I want to add right now just because. So for segment ID, we're actually adding the value to this key as we go step by step. So for recent purchase, to kind of show you a real example here, we define recent purchases as anything made in 2020. The only thing I have in my data is purchase date. But what I can do is use this recent purchase label and set it to true. Conversely, we can say for and everything else, we can set recent purchase to false and save that. And now if you look at the preview, turn this up and go all the way, oops, sorry, missed my bar. Oh, we can do this all the way over. You see these highlighted values here, and you'll notice there's segment ID and recent purchase. What these are as we're extracting and as we're running the recipients through this rules engine, we give you the ability to build out a label that you can then use in things like personalization. If recent purchase equals true, I want to show them this content versus something else. if it's blank, that just means that this recipient didn't actually get into that recent purchase block. So that's what we talk about by enhancing the data. And then again, these segment ID and recent purchase columns didn't exist in the data set. We're just simply adding it as we extract the data and send it to a third party.
Okay, so it's not like blowing out the data size or anything like that. It's just for that third party. Okay.
Absolutely. It's just for whenever you run that blueprint in that export.
Sure. I actually got a couple questions pop in on that. One was, this is kind of a spicy one. So here, I'll just read it as is. We currently use Unica Campaign, and this process, and I assume they're talking about the process of adding or additional labels, takes much longer. Why is it going quickly here? So I think that's asking like I guess, is this doing the same thing that a typical segmentation tool is doing? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I mean, I think you'd be rare to find someone who actually knows what Unica is doing. But for us, our goal here is to simplify it, right? MessageGears lives with your data. So you don't have to worry about setting up all these temp tables, filtering those down, setting up like the cell IDs and going through all these different very data-oriented screenshots. What makes this so fast and easy to use is all I have to do is click here and we can say new label. And just like that, we have a new attribute to use in our system. If I wanted to, for some reason, use that new label here, I can use it. And like I said, that was 3 clicks. We've now added that label to the data set and we can continue to use it. There's no worry about data setup or temp tables because we're with your data right now and we're only working on this as we're extracting it.
Sure. One other question that we're getting in the chat is, how often does this data refresh? And can you leave the blueprint and come back and will it be the same?
So if you're talking about the data in terms of like the count, that's refreshing when you trigger it. If you're talking about the data in the sense of what's in this query, it's whenever you as a company have that data, that data updating. So it's your data. It's going to update as frequently as as you want it to. In terms of leaving the blueprint and come back, I think you might have seen earlier is if I leave, you're gonna, oops, sorry, click the wrong tab. You'll get things like unsaved changes come back. We don't have any draft version of this just yet. That's gonna come out in a future release. But you can, easily make a change, click save, leave, come back, and you can pick right back up where you left off.
Sure, and just to bear in on the one thing you said, we said that the data is changing. That count, if you zoom in on a couple of those boxes, that count you have for the number of people in a node, when will that change?
So that'll change anytime that you trigger a count. So if I trigger a count right here, we'll rerun it again. I'll be back in just a second. And so now we have that. The only time that the count's gonna change on the blueprint, if you're looking at it, is if you trigger it and the data is changed from the source data.
Okay, great. So I think that makes sense to me, how you can enhance that data. Can you then show me, what it's like to send it outside of the environment to like kind of export to those third parties?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to use the same blueprint that we created. We're going to go over to what we have called external campaigns. Went ahead and made one just so you don't have to watch me do that. We have our engagement campaign. I have that selected blueprint. I'll go ahead and trigger a count here just if anything happened to change in the last 15 seconds. So for this first example, we're going to look at sending our high engagement recipients or high engagement users to Facebook or social, and we're going to take our low and actually send them to Google for some search content. So using this blueprint, and we have the Facebook destination, we called it, April 2020 high engagement. Looking over here, we have that blueprint that we were playing with, but you're going to notice one difference here, and that's this checkbox, excuse me. So what, sorry, finger slipped. So what this is doing is allowing me to select who I want to include in a particular export to a third party. So like I said, I wanted to use my high engagement. So if we follow down the path, we had they made a purchase, they're of a high loyalty level, they made a purchase recently, and they fell in this target group. If I simply just check that box, go ahead and save it, and we can export this. And so now I'm only sending recipients that ended up in that box to Facebook. And then with a few more tweaks, I can come here. We'll change this to Google, and we'll change this to low engagement, because these are those, we want to use the recipients that haven't been interacting with our content. And go use that same blueprint with the checkboxes, unselect it. And remember earlier I talked about that merge node, which was grouping together all my low engagement users. By checking that box right there, it's going to gather all of those. In the same point, for whatever reason you wanted to check higher up, you could easily check loyalty level, and you would still get loyalty level and everything below it, because no matter what, we're going to finish processing the blueprint, but we allow you to kind of decide who's going to just be included in that final extract. So again, if I save here and export, you now see that we had, the Google AdWords initializing, which this Facebook failed for some reason, is a demo environment, but I would get an email notification there explaining why it failed and what actions I could take to remedy that.
Okay, we're getting a few questions on the export there. First one being, can you only export to social media sites? I'll let you take that.
No, absolutely not. So you can export these blueprints to nearly any third party, such as mobile messaging providers like Airship. We showed you social like Facebook, and we did Google, or really just any messaging provider that you choose.
Okay. Another question is, talk me through how you would use the labels with the third party. So I think it'd be like, oh yeah, what do you? I guess that's self-explanatory.
Yeah. So what you would do with those labels is, say we're using Facebook, right? And in my Facebook data, I had a field that was segment. If I wanted to include that segment ID that I had been working on in this blueprint, we could use that segment ID that I generate in this particular run of the blueprint in Facebook for, personalized targeting, showing them a specific product, anything of that nature.
Okay. Another question that I think is a little bit off topic, but how does segment scale?
So segment, how does it scale? I guess there's two questions here. Let's dive into this. I think I have a larger segment here. Go here. Oh, yes, I do. Okay. So I won't zoom.
Sorry, Ricky. We've lost you on the audio. Were you accidentally muted? Hey, Ricky, can you hear me?
Very
hey, Ricky, can you pause
on,
for?
Yeah.
Hey, Ricky, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think the internet went out for a moment. Could you start over at the beginning of this page? I lost you for a moment.
Yeah, sure. So again, this is a large blueprint. We're looking at 20 odd nodes. Within these nodes, there's, probably 50 or so actual segments. The UI itself, you're not going to have any performance issues no matter the size, like I was kind of showing there, moving, zooming, whatever. In terms of the actual processing, it runs almost as fast as you can get the data out of as MessageGears can get the data out of your database. So if I wanted to trigger an account here, and to be perfectly honest, I don't really know how large this is. This count is running the query, and then as that query is coming out, we're go ahead and streaming those recipients through this. So this kind of count duration and count time that you're going to look at is just strictly how fast can MessageGears actually get the data. There's not really much overhead of the actual running of the blueprint, because again, we're not building temp tables, we're not having to do any extraneous data solutions. We're simply extracting and streaming through the given rules engine.
Is that different from what you'd see like in another segmentation tool?
Yeah, a lot of times the way that they're doing this is, as they're building the segment, they'll create some kind of table for you to then select from, and then from there, you have to worry about cleaning that up. I see, just like that. So it took 50 seconds to process 2 million people through this segmentation. Um, but yeah, so whereas we're just extracting and streaming it through the algorithm that you've yourself have built, those other ones have a lot of overhead, IT overhead behind the scenes that you probably aren't necessarily seeing.
Okay. We just got a question, and it's one of my favorites because I love it. But does Segment integrate with Engage?
No idea that'd be your favorite question. Yeah, absolutely. So, what you saw here is using the blueprint itself and then actually exporting it to a third party. But if you use the Engage product, so if we go over here to this offers, and let's preview this, you can reference this Engage offering or these Engage details through the third party. So if you're using something like Movable Ink, you can use the blueprint to actually help identify and create the personalized content or for your template. And then you can reference Engage with that to make sure you're getting the most up-to-date offering. So if my blueprint, if I segmented somebody, into a northern region and, according to the Engage data, we know that it's snowing up there. You can make sure you're showing an offer for snow chains or whatever. You can tell I'm not well versed in cold weather because I live in Georgia, so something along those lines.
No, snow chains are a thing. You got it. So okay, we've walked through the segmentation, the data enhancement, and the export. Is there anything else about Segment that you'd like to show today or talk about?
Yeah, so I think one of the things, oops, wrong button, sorry, excuse me. One of the things I really enjoy about Segment in general is just as a data geek, as product, as UX, and including improving user experience being one of my top priorities is um, we followed modern designs. So instead of having this kind of monolithic program that you are scared to update or you don't know what would happen in an update, we built this using Angular components, and really what that means is that we can make small tweaks to this really rapidly and in isolation. So if we need to make a tweak to improve the performance for the target node, like I was saying, we can do that in isolation and we can do that quickly. So this is a product that's going to continue to evolve and grow as quickly as marketer needs evolve and grow.
Okay. I think at that point, just finishing out, I think we're good to stop for questions at the end here, given that's the end. There's one that was asked kind of early on that I've kind of put off till now, but who do you see as the target? Who would benefit the most from MessageGear Segment?
Sure. So I mean, it's going to be anyone who has their data in a format where you kind of have these isolated attributes. So, we have name, demographic information, as you saw, like, purchase information, and you're looking to act on that in, a visual manner. So instead of having to worry about consulting data teams to, create rules and stuff, you can now do that yourself in this visual builder without having to worry about, do I have the right data? Um, do I need do I know how to make this rule? Because with the simple query builder, you can do that.
Okay. So thank you very much for that. The other one is, and I think we touched on it before, but are there limits in Segment, like either the amount of data or the number of segments?
No, absolutely not. So as much data as you can throw at it and as many segments as as you can, kind of personally keep up with on the screen. There's no technical limit. I think it's more of like a user interaction limit of how many nodes do you want to work with.
Okay, and then another question here is, how does Segment connect to the customer data?
So it connects using the data sources that we have now. So using like the various drivers for BigQuery, Snowflake, MySQL, whatever, we connect directly to that data, and it allows us to query from there.
Okay, thank you. So seeing no further questions, I think that is it for the majority of our presentation. Um, any last words you have for Segment or for the audience today?
I mean, no, I'm excited to get people using it, trying it out, seeing what needs can evolve that it can fill.
Excellent. Hey, well, thank you so much to everyone that tuned in today, and thank you very much for all the active questions. We had a really active audience. Look forward to talking to you in the future. And I guess with nothing else, we'll go. I believe the recording will be available somewhere at MessageGears. So get that, and then contact sales@messagegears.com if you'd like to learn more. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.